Hey guys, welcome back to Shristi Tech Academy. In today's video, let us understand how to do conversions between DTOs, data transfer objects, and entities in a Spring Boot application. For this, we will be using the third-party library ModelMapper. So, let us discuss how to map our DTOs into entities for saving data, how to convert our entities back into DTOs to return as API responses. For this, let us take book as our domain model. You will also understand how this simplifies our code, reduces the boilerplate code, and helps to write clean and maintainable APIs. Let us get started. Before jumping into the coding part, let us understand what is DTO, why do we even need DTO, and what is ModelMapper. What is DTO? DTO is data transfer object. It is a simple Java object that is used for carrying data between processes, layers, or services in an application. Okay. In our Spring application, this DTO object is used for transferring data between the API layer, that is the controller class, and the service layer without exposing the entities. Why do we even need DTO? Encapsulation of data. Entities are usually associated with the database, that is, they are tightly coupled with the database. Exposing entities as API response will lead to severe problems, as in you are exposing the sensitive informations like audit IDs, password, salary, and few other informations. To avoid that, it is better that you use DTO to return the data as API response. To return only the needed and necessary data as API response. DTO class prevents tight coupling with database. When you are working with entities, entities are tightly coupled with the database. If you are exposing the entities as API responses, it means whenever you are doing some changes in the database specific entities, your API may break. To avoid that, convert your entities into data transfer objects and then send them as API responses. Validation and transformation. Whenever you are getting input from the client, you need to validate it. There are certain libraries that help to do the validation. For that, we also use annotations like not null, size, email, required, min, max, and so on. Now, I cannot add these annotations to the entity classes because there is no separation of concern. So, it's always better to have a DTO class, get the input from the client, and send it to the service layer where the mapping or the conversion happens. Mapping your data transfer object into entity or converting your entity back into data transfer object. Do not worry, I will explain the workflow also. Next, improved API security. Already we have discussed, directly exposing entities might leak sensitive DB informations. To avoid that, it is always better to use DTO objects. Better control over API responses. There are scenarios where I do not want to send all the properties of a class as API response. I want to send, let's say, few properties only. As in case of book, I want to send only title and author, or title, price, and category. So based on the client's requirement, I can pick and choose the properties and send it back. That is possible only with the help of DTOs. You can have any number of DTOs that are needed for an application. Okay. What is ModelMapper? ModelMapper is a library which is used for performing the conversion between objects. That is, it is used for converting one Java object of one type into another Java object of another type. Rather than you sitting and writing the code all by yourself, if you are using ModelMapper in one single line of code, you can do the work. By this way, you are avoiding the repetitive code that you will be writing. I will show you without ModelMapper how it is going to be and with ModelMapper how it will be. Okay. In case of Spring Boot, ModelMapper is used for converting your DTOs into entities and entities back into DTO. These conversions happen only in the service layer. You should not do the conversion in the controller. When a client sends a request, it enters into the controller class as a DTO object. From the controller to the service, again it goes as a DTO object only. In the service layer, you convert your DTO into entity and then send the entity object to the repository for saving. Similarly, when it is coming from the backend, it will come as a list of entities or one single entity. In the service layer, convert them into DTO object and send it back to the controller. Okay, now we will see the workflow before jumping into the coding part. Okay, in our case, the domain model that we are going to work with this book. So, the properties that we will be having is book ID, title, author, price and ISBN number. This is my entity class. We need an equivalent Java class that will behave as a DTO class so that I can get the data from the client. Let's say I am having the class as BookDTO. I don't want to get the ID and ISBN number from the client. Book ID will be auto-generated. In case of ISBN number, it is a string. We will generate it in the service layer and we will save it in the database. So, it is the duty of the client to send only title, author and price. In our class, let's say we have title, author and price. Okay, this is my BookDTO class. Now, what is the workflow of this particular application? You all know when a request comes in, first it will enter into the controller. In our case, it is book controller. From the controller class, the data is sent to the service layer. So, we will have iBook service and book service IMPL. And from the service layer, the data is sent to the repository. So, here it is iBook repository. And this is responsible for saving the data to the database. Okay. Now, let us assume we will have few methods in the controller and the same methods in iBook service. What are the operations that we actually want to perform? Add book, update book, delete book, get all book, get by ID and get by author. If you notice, the last three methods are like querying the database. The first three operations are like performing or doing some functionality in the database. Okay. What about the parameter? See, whatever methods you are having in the service, similar methods only you will be having in the controller. So, what is coming inside as an input? It is the DTO object. Guys, just because we are working in a REST API, rather than having it as BookDTO, we can have it as BookRequest. Because this is a request that is coming from the client. This is one single object. So, the input that is coming to the controller is a BookRequest object. So, in add book, what I need to pass is BookRequest. Okay. When it is coming inside to the service layer also, it comes as a BookRequest object only. Now, in the service layer, you need to convert the request object to entity. And then only you need to save the entity to the database using the repository layer. So, the service layer is responsible for converting the BookDTO object into an entity and save the entity to the database. So, whatever input that is coming inside is not an entity object. We are not passing this book as a parameter, but we are passing BookRequest as parameter, which accepts only title, author and price. Of course, if you want to do validation, you can do the validation also. So, here let me have the return type as void. What about update book? The same story. BookRequest, request. The return type is void. In case of delete book, it is simply into book ID. The return type is void. Now, what about get all book? This time the flow is from the repository to the service layer. I hope you can understand. the repository has to return a list of books. When it is returning, the return type is list of book. That reaches the service layer. Now, the service layer is responsible for converting the list of book into list of book DTO. In our case, we have given it as book request. You all know what is coming inside will be a request. What is going back from the back end to the front end or to the client is called as a response. So, we can have one more class as book response, which can return title, author, price. Together with that, it can also return the ISBN number. So, whatever properties you want to return, you can return it. So, in the service layer, we need to convert the list of book into list of book response and send it back to the controller class. Okay. The controller class will again return the list of book response to the client. So, in case of get all book, the return type will be list of book response, not list of book. The repository will return list of book, but the service layer has to convert the list of book to list of book response. What about get by ID? Here we are passing int book ID, and when it is coming back from the backend, it is one single book object. We need to convert the book object into book response. So, the return type of get by ID will be book response. Same is the case for get by author. Okay, now let me show the proper picture. This is the controller. In the controller, a book request comes in. Now it goes to the service layer. In the service layer, you need to convert the book request to book entity. Who is responsible for doing that? ModelMapper. And then save it. So, when it goes to the repository, you are sending only the entity, that is the book entity, to be saved. This is the first flow. This flow is common for add book and update book. The input that is coming from the client is a book request object that is given to the service layer. The service layer converts the request to book entity. Then it is using the repository to save the book entity to the database. Now the second flow. In case of the second flow, the result is coming from the repository. This is my repository. The repository can return one single book entity or list of book entities. It reaches the service layer. So this is our service layer. This is our repo layer. Here also it is the same, controller, service and repo layer. In the service layer, you need to convert the list of book into list of book response. You need to convert the book object into book response object and then send it back to the controller. So, controller will receive this particular data and it will return it back to the client. The second flow is used when you are querying the database, get by ID or find by ID, find by author, find by price, find by title, find all books. In all these scenarios, what is coming inside is a list of book or one single book object. In the service layer, we need to convert it into book response or list of book response and send it back to the controller. Okay, I hope it is clear. This is what we are going to do now. For this, we will be working with the third-party library ModelMapper. Let us move on to the coding part. This particular project will be available in Git repository. I will share the link of the repository in the description. It is YT Spring Demos. Okay. Let us get started. File, new Spring Starter project. Let me give the name as Spring Book App ModelMapper. Type is Maven. Packaging is jar. Java version is 21. Group ID and package is com.bookapp. Click next. We are connecting with the database, so we need MySQL driver. Lombok we need data.jpa and web. Click finish. We also need ModelMapper as our dependency. We need to pull it from Maven repository. So let me open the browser. Go and search for ModelMapper Maven. Click on the first search result. Always choose the version which is downloaded very often. So let me select 3.1.1. Come down, keep the cursor, it will be copied. Now let me open pom.xml. I will add it here. Okay. Shift Control A, Shift Control F. Okay. What next? We need to start with creating the book class. Select your package, right click, new class. com.bookapp.model, class name is book. Let me add the properties: title, author, book ID, price and ISBN number. 5 properties. Now let us add the appropriate annotations. At entity, then the annotation specific to Lombok, at data, at all-args constructor, at no-args constructor. That's it. And for book ID, let us add at ID and generated value so that it is auto generated. Okay. Now let us create the equivalent DTO class. Here the name is not BookDTO, we will have it as BookRequest and BookResponse. So let us copy paste it and modify it. Control C, Control V. Let me give the class name as BookRequest. Control V again, BookResponse. Okay, let me open BookRequest. It should not have any annotations relevant to the database. This is a normal Java class. Okay. Shift Control O. I am removing the unwanted imports. Go to BookResponse. The same story. Yes. What next? We need to create the service layer. Select your package, right click, new interface. com.bookapp.service. iBookService. Now we need to add the methods. The first method is add book. The return type is void. So what is the input to this method? BookRequest. 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 Similarly, we have update book. The next one is delete book. This takes int book ID as parameter. So these 3 methods do some functionality in the database. That is, they modify the table in the database. Rest of the things are all querying the database. Like first method is get by ID. I am passing int book ID. When you call this method from the service layer, the repository will return one single book object. But I cannot return the book object to the controller. I need to return the DTO object. In our case, it is BookResponse. BookResponse. Okay. Similarly, we will create one more method, get all books. No parameter. The return type is list of BookResponse. Here also the conversion happens in the service layer. Import list. And one more method, get by author. Get by author. String author. Okay. Here let me have it as simply get all. Okay, let us create the implementation class for this. Select your package, right click, new class. Book service IMPL. Annotate the class with that service. And make the class implement iBookService. Okay. Keep the cursor, add unimplemented methods. Now we also need the repository layer, so let me create it. Right click, new interface. bookapp.repository. The interface name is iBookRepository. Okay. Make the repository extend JPA repository. And our domain model is book. The data type of the ID is integer. That's it. Now let me go back to book service IMPL. Okay. Now here we need to auto wire iBook repository at auto wired private iBook repository. Book repository. Okay. If I am not using ModelMapper, then what I need to do is I need to get one by one property of book request and convert it into book objects property. As in, first I will create a book object. Book is equal to new book. Then book dot set author. Book request dot get author. Again book dot set price. Book request dot get price. So this is how I have to do. I need to do for all the properties. Finally call the method of repository. As in book repository dot save by passing the book object. This is what we have to write if we are not working with any third party library like ModelMapper. Okay. Now in our case we are using ModelMapper. Just by using one single line of code we can do all this work. How? Let us see it. First step is I need to auto-wire ModelMapper. It means I need an object of ModelMapper. Can I create an object of ModelMapper all by myself? No. In case of Spring, you can never create an object for any class if you are going to use it. Do not think about this, but I am talking about the classes where you are having dependency. Now, my book service IMPL is dependent on ModelMapper. I should not create an object of ModelMapper all by myself. Whenever you are working with inbuilt classes, always remember you need to go in for a class that is annotated with that configuration and create the bean definition. Okay, can I create it in the main class? You may be wondering, at Spring Boot application also is having at configuration annotation. But there are scenarios if you are creating it as a console based application. If your main class is dependent on service is dependent on ModelMapper or any bean, then there will be a circular dependency. To avoid that, always create the bean definitions in a separate configuration file. So first, let us create the bean definition. Select the package, right click, new class. I am creating the class in the main package itself, app config. The class should be annotated with that configuration and add at bean definition. I need an object of ModelMapper. Return new ModelMapper. That's it. Now we have got a bean. This means the object will be automatically created by Spring Framework. So once the bean is available, we can auto-wire it. So let me add at auto-wired private ModelMapper mapper. Okay. Now rather than writing these many number of lines, I am going to add one single line of code. Mapper dot. There are so many overloaded methods. We are not going in for custom mapping. Let us take the first method. Object source. What is the source? Book request. So pass an object of book request. To what type you want to convert? Book.class. So take the first one. First one is book request, comma. I want to convert it into book object. So give the class type. See the return type of map. It is book. So I don't have to sit and create a book object, set one by one property by getting the values of book request. Directly I can call this method. So just by using one single method in a single line of code, we have converted our book request object into book entity. Once it is converted into book entity, you call the method of the repository to save the entity. That's it. See the amount of repetition that we have reduced. In our case, we are having 5 properties. What if your class is having multiple properties? There is one more tweak that we forgot. We all know that ID will be auto-generated. What about ISBN number? ISBN number, I told you we need to generate it in the service layer. So let us create a separate method for that. Private string ISBN data type, I have given it a string. Generate ISBN. Return UUID dot, this is from util package, random UUID dot toString. Let us use substring. This is just a basic logic 0, 13. This will return a number. I need this to be a proper string. So maybe I can add ISBN hyphen plus. Okay. So this number, whatever we have got, will be appended to ISBN and saved in the database. One thing I forgot, in BookRequest we did not remove book ID and ISBN. I am removing it. In BookResponse, I don't want book ID. Let ISBN be there. Okay, going back to book service IMPL. Now we need to set the value to the book object before saving it. Book.set ISBN. Generate ISBN. That's it. Okay. Now we will move on to the next method. The first step is we need to convert the book request object to book entity. It is very simple. Using the mapper object mapper.map. The first parameter is the book request object. The second parameter is the class type to which you want to convert. The return type is a book object. Book equal to. Next, directly save it. Next is call the method of the repository to save the entity. So directly I can call book repository.savebook. Okay. Next one is delete book. We will call book repository dot delete by ID by passing book ID. Fine. The remaining methods are all querying the database. Okay. Now first step is get the book entity from the database. So the method is book repository dot find by ID. See the return type, it is an optional. You always have to check the optional and then only you need to return the value. As of now, because this is a very basic example, I am not checking anything or I am not throwing anything. Directly I will call the method. Book ID dot get. So it returns a book object. This is our entity. Okay. After that, we need to convert the book entity into book response. If I have to do it all by myself, I need to write it as book response. Book response is equal to new book response. I need to explicitly create the object and then set the properties one by one. Book response dot set author. The author value should come from book. Book dot get author. Then book response dot set price. Book dot get price. Likewise, I need to set the values for each and every property. Rather than doing this, we can use the method of ModelMapper. Same method, mapper.map. Now the input to this map method is book. What I want output is an object of book response. So the class type is bookResponse.class. Okay, and return the book response object. You can do it in one single line also. Return directly mapper.map book response. Okay, so here we are converting. This time it is the reverse. Convert book entity to book response. Okay. Yes. Now we'll move on to the next method. The method is getAll. The first step is we need to get the list of book entities from the database. So the method is book repository dot find all. See the return type, it is list of book. So what this is returning is list of book, as in list of book entities. Now we need to convert the book entity to book response object. But this is kind of difficult. Why? It is a list of books. So we need to take one by one book and convert it. Of course, you can use a for loop and do it, or use Streams API. Now we will use Streams API. Convert the list into a stream, books.stream, and let us use the method map. Map takes an object of one type and converts it into an object of another type. It takes function as parameter. So in our case, one by one book is coming inside. I need to convert it into book response object. So how can I do it? I will use the same method. So inside this I can pass mapper.map. One book object is coming inside. I am converting it into book response.class. After this, you need to convert it back into a list. See the return type of map now. It is stream of book response. I need to convert it back into a list. So use toList. Now see the return type, it is list of book response. Okay, end it with a semicolon. Either you can add the return statement here itself or get it in a variable and return it. Book responses, book response. The return type here is book responses. Okay, this is for get all. We'll move on to the next method, get by author, which takes string author as parameter. We cannot use any inbuilt method. We need to go in for derived query. So go to iBook repository and you need to create a method. So I'll just go here. Let me add the method. The return type is list of book, not book response. Okay. Get by author or find by author, anything you can give. This is a derived query. Now go back to book service IMPL. Let me copy the whole code from get all method and paste it over here. The only thing that is getting changed here is the method name. Instead of find all, it is find by author. That's all. Find by author by passing author. Okay. Our service implementation is ready. So the purpose of the service class is to take care of the business logic. Together with that, whatever DTO object is coming inside, it is mapping it into an entity object and sending it to the repository. Similarly, whenever one single entity or a list of entities are coming inside, it is converting the list of entities into list of DTOs and sending it back to the controller. Now we need to add methods in the controller class. First we need to create a controller class. Select your package, right click new class, com.bookapp.controllers. Let me give the class name as book controller. Annotated with @rest controller. Now I need to add methods. So what are the methods that we need? Whatever methods we are having in iBook service, anyways we need to call it. So I'll copy all the methods and add it to book controller. Okay. First I will replace this semicolon with curly braces. Control F with curly brace. Next. That's all. Only till that part. And I want to replace this void with response entity of void. Okay. Next. That's it. And again, replace this book response with response entity of book response. Replace this list of book response with response entity of list of book response. Replace. That's it. Shift Control O to import. No need of that line querying. Shift Control F. Okay, all set. Now we need to auto wire service, call the method and add the appropriate mapping. At auto wired private iBook service, book service. Okay, and let us add the appropriate URL mapping. Start with add method. At post mapping, the URL is /books and I am getting it from the client as request body, and inside this we need to call the method book service dot add book by passing book request object. Please understand, this request object goes inside the service layer and then it is getting converted into book entity. Till that time it is a normal Java object. Now we need to add the return type also. Return response entity dot status http status dot created dot build. No body part, so directly call dot build method. Okay, same return type for update book and delete book. First let me add that. Okay, and we need to add the appropriate annotation. For update book it is at put mapping and the URL is /books, and here it is request body. And okay, next we need to call the method book service dot update book by passing the book request object. Next one is delete book. The annotation is at delete mapping. The URL is /books /book id / curly brace book id. Book id comes in as a path variable. at path variable. Okay. Then next one, get by ID. The URL is at get mapping. These are all querying the database, right? Same thing. I'll copy till this end. And of course we need to add at path variable for book ID and for author. Okay, we need to call the method of delete book also. Book service dot delete book by passing book ID. If you do not want to have the same method, maybe you can modify the methods that are there in the controller. Instead of get by ID, I can have get book by ID. Instead of get all, I can have get all books. Here get books by author, update one book, add one book, or create book, delete book by ID. So you can modify the methods accordingly. Now the next one is get book by ID. We need to call it book service dot get by ID. See the return type, it is book response. Let us have the return type as book response. Book response is equal to, okay, and return response entity of by passing the body part. In our case it is book response. That's it. See, I have copy pasted the return statement for all the three methods, but here it is http status dot created. For update one book, it should not be created. Maybe we can have it as accepted 202, and in this case maybe we can have it as dot OK. So try to give the proper http response. Now in this case it is fine, response entity dot OK by passing book response. The next one, here also it is at get mapping. The URL is only till books, and call the method book service dot get all. It returns a list of book responses. List of book responses. I am simply giving it as books only. And in the next line, I can use the same method response entity dot OK by passing the body part. In our case it is books. Done. Now the last method at get mapping, get by author slash book slash author slash curly brace author. Author is passed as a path variable here. Now let me call the method book service dot get by author by passing the author, and let us have the return type list of book response, and return response entity dot OK by passing books. Okay, see how the code is clean now. We have simplified it using ModelMapper to convert your DTO into entity, entity into DTO. In our REST endpoints, we are not doing any business logic, or we are not doing any conversion. That is converting entity into DTO, DTO into entity. Nothing of that sort is happening over here. So this is how your API should look like. It should be clean and maintainable. You can of course add headers. Okay, all set now. The next part is we need to add the properties, that is the database specific property. So I already have an YAML file. So let me copy it for our application. This is my YAML file. I will remove the properties file. If you are having the properties file, always properties file will have the highest priority. In that case, there will be conflict of application name. So I have deleted it. All set now. I need to create a database with the name YT Spring. So let me open MySQL, password, create database YT Spring. Now the database is ready. Now let us run the application. Select your application, right click, run as Spring Boot app. Maximize the console. Okay, the table is created. Book ID, author, ISBN, price, title, primary key. Now let us test the application. The application is running in port number 8081. So it is localhost :8081/books. Let me use the HTTP method post body raw, select JSON. Now within curly braces we need to pass title, author and price. title Java in action, comma, author Kathy and price. That's it. And click send. Here I am getting it as 201 created. It means the data is added to the table. Let us check it out. Use get method. Get all books. Click send. Yeah, I am getting it. See, the ISBN number also is auto generated. Now let me add one more book. Post at first Java with the same author I am just giving, and click send. It is created. Use get method, click send. It should show me both the books. Now by author / Kathy. So obviously it will return both the books. We can also check in the table. Select star from book. Use YT spring. Select star from book. Yeah. For the second book, a new ISBN is generated. Let us also test book by ID. Book ID/1. Okay, it is returning the first book. Guys, I hope it is clear. The idea of this application is not to deep dive into REST API, but just to understand how to use ModelMapper to do the conversion. That is, to map DTOs into entities and entities back into DTO objects. By this way, how to make our REST API look clean and maintainable. That's all for today. Thank you.